All right, everybody. Welcome back to the best hour of the day. Fern here with two of my good friends that it's been far too long that since seeing them. Austin Malleolo, James Hobart. I figured I'd bring on, two mediocre fitness enthusiasts and mediocre coaches, and you were two were the first that came to mind in that.
The most. The most.
But I know you guys are busy. You guys are doing a ton of stuff with Handplan, trying to get your affiliates back open. So thanks for your time. It's good seeing you guys.
Good to see you, brother.
Great to see you.
Largely, what I wanted to do was you guys have put together an extremely thorough back to business kind of PDF plan, if you will. I want to say it's 40 pages.
Yeah.
And it's not 40 pages of like picture book, like it's 40 pages of really, really good shit for affiliates. So if you're one of these people that has no plan whatsoever, this is it. It's laid out step by step. So first and foremost, like when did you guys start putting this together, and what was the framework for starting to put it together? Because largely, do you guys even have a timeline to open in Boston?
The short answer is no. We don't know anything until till the May 18th. But we don't have much of a. There's been no information specifically given to gyms of what it looks like within the phases. So
So you have no idea what phase you're even gonna fall in.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are, and just based off the behavior of the state, I would say that we'll be towards the back half of the phases.
Yeah. Do you even know how many phases there are at this point?
I believe there are four. They said there's going to be four.
Okay. So you're anticipating not one or two?
Yeah, I would say one would be a shock to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that in theory starts on May 18th.
Got it. Which is Monday. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our phase one in Virginia starts today. Gyms are not on it.
Yeah.
But tattoo parlors are, so that's good.
Yep. That's
social distancing by definition, I guess you could say. So let's talk about it a little bit. What was the genesis of like putting this together? Were you guys just like, hey, we fucking want to put a plan and we might as well just share it, or?
Yeah.
Hit
it, James.
That kind of sums it up. I think, part of it was we just wanted to provide, if gyms are hurting right now, and we get that because we're affiliate owners, and you get that because you're an affiliate owner. And I've been so blown away by how few members we've lost, and other affiliates I've talked to, how, percentage wise they have lost compared to what I think was going to happen or thought was going to happen. It's not like, I thought it would be the member retention would be far more difficult. And that's not to say that gyms still aren't in hard spots, but yeah, so gyms were in a really tough spot, and we wanted to provide them things that we were thinking about and just some insight and some comfort. And I think, even if you don't know all the details in a situation like this, it really helps to have some direction. And that was really our goal, was just to provide that for the community. And, I look at it and I think there are definitely some areas, we didn't cover everything in it, but based on what we knew and what we were dealing with, we just wanted to share that with everybody else. And that's kind of how we set out to do it. And it became a much bigger project the more we got into it.
I mean, this is detailed. I'm just reading through the table of table of contents, and it starts with just assessing your business. So this actually doesn't have anything to do with any of this closure. Just like you should just do an overall assessment of your business. You're kind of forced to now, but you should do that anyway, why it matters. And then it goes into like phase one, class procedures, best practices, class examples, FAQs, limiting classes. There's a ton of stuff in here, all the way into like, sample affiliate protocols here at the end. I mean, it's detailed. Like I know some people have put out some other stuff, but I haven't seen anything that is this in the weeds, which I think is super important, because this stuff matters. Like, yes, it's a shitty time, but this is also a time for people to shine if you've got your stuff together.
Yeah. And I think something that I know that, that certainly with the hand plan that we have, I guess, not, struggled with, is to how do we actually take what we work on, what we know, what we talk about, and give it to people, give it to our community. We do this so often, and we do, we coach, and we do things that we take for granted that other people want to know about. So this was one of our first times where we sat down and we were like, hey, let's just put everything that we've discussed on paper. And that's really how it started. And that's why, like James said, it became a way more of an undertaking than we expected, because we were as this document was being created, we were like, hey, no, add this. And then just little things like evolving, like, hey, just oh, we just learned this, or we just tried this, do this. So this in theory could be an evolving document, right? But
Mhm.
the easiest way to distribute it was to create something like this. But it's if there's one thing that we've always wanted to do, and that's why we love, the hand plan, is to just give people our experiences through
Yes.
education and understanding. And
Yep.
and in a time like this, and I'll just get something off my chest. One of my biggest pet peeves in times like this is when people tell you that there's only one way to do something. And that's because that's couldn't be further from the truth. What we really wanted to do was have this just be a thought starter, a
Mhm.
an idea creator, a challenger, depending on where your views are. Because I think no matter where you are, right, where we are in the Boston area, is we're going to be different than if you are in Texas or Florida specifically right now, because of the timeline. But if we're all thinking about this stuff, then we're probably going to make the right decisions. And that was the goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's some probably common principles that you have to execute on, but anybody who says they've got the answer is entirely full of shit, because nobody knows how to do this. Like, nobody's ever done it before. Like,
Right.
there is no answer. It's like everybody is building the plane while they're flying it. Like, you don't have another option at this point.
Right.
So what's the big thing, like, if we were to kind of go through this, because like, if everybody understands, like, okay, well, I have to beef up my cleaning protocol and I have to limit my class sizes, but what are some things that you guys have put in here that you think people may not have thought about?
Hmm. Gosh, that's a really good question. I I think so. For me, I think the biggest thing is probably in the very beginning, like the assessment of the business, of like that first part of really looking at your business, and then not only where you're at now, but where you're going to be when you start back up, what those expenses, projected revenue, and because really, I think it's very easy to say, oh, like when we open up, my revenue, I'll just pick up where we left, and that's going to be far from the case.
Probably
And
not.
so, yeah, and so I think that's probably the thing that's easily overlooked, because it then leads to some really difficult conversations with yourself, your business partners, and your staff. Um, and I think it's overlooked sometimes subconsciously, because it is for some, it might actually mean, can we stay open?
Yeah.
If on the other side of this, we're only getting 50% of the revenue we were when we started, but our operating costs are higher now because, I have to pay, in order for me to open, I have to have more classes, more payroll, more cleaning, all of these things. So I don't know. That's where my head goes. And maybe that's because I'm a business guy. I don't know. James, you might have another thing that's a little more highlighted.
No, I actually think that is a really important point, and that kind of goes to one of the driving forces behind this, and kind of a personal passion of mine is, the most successful affiliates I see out there do a really nice job of treating themselves like a business, understanding the financial side of the business, but as well, without forgetting about the importance of offering a quality product and how that impacts what they do on a daily basis, and creating those things around that, or creating those things that create a meaningful class experience for members. So I do think one of the most important things businesses can do, CrossFit gyms can do, is, and I don't think we do enough, is treat ourselves as professionals. And I've talked about this before, is I hear from so many people like, oh, I'm just a coach. And it's like, no, you're not just a coach. Like, you are a coach, and that's a really important thing. And you have a expert skill set that not a lot of people have. And I think one of the driving forces behind this Back to Business PDF was to just remind affiliates that if you're not already treating yourself like a business and looking at yourself as a professional, first step is that you should. And as you go through this process, is to not forget that all of the steps that we are going to, the states or the local governments or public health boards are going to force us to have to implement now in our businesses, all of those steps we have to be able to implement those without them destroying what we do. So for example, like if you're, leveraged to the hills to buy cleaning supplies to keep your gym open, you need to be able to step back and evaluate, how do I balance both? How do I keep my doors open? How do I apply to, how do I not apply, but adhere to social distancing and sanitation protocols while still providing a good class experience, while still, providing myself some income to live as a business owner, while still providing for coaches. And I think that was one of the biggest, probably the most important lesson out of it, is just to constantly be going through that process of evaluating where those financials are at. And the other thing I hope comes out of it that I don't think everyone is thinking about is, you still need to do what it is we do, is provide a best hour of their day, right? We still
Mm-hmm.
need to do that. But it's okay if the way you do that, the medium that you do that, for example, a Zoom class, is different than in the past. But don't lose sight of what your expertise skill set is. And that's providing people with an enjoyable fitness experience within 60 minutes on a day-by-day basis. Now, where you do that, or the platform you need to do that, we can adapt to that shit. And that's what I wanted to come out of this, was people to learn how to do that. So I hope they start to get some ideas to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Like on Austin's note about just evaluating the business, I've talked, John Briggs has been on the podcast, who's the
Yeah.
runs Insight Tax and, micro or Profit First for micro gyms. I agree with him. Yeah, he's worked with hundreds and hundreds of gyms at this point. Every gym should have gone in and immediately tried to find 10% to cut out of their budget, which is actually a lot easier to do than people think. Like there's a lot of extraneous expenses in there that you just don't need. And coming back out of them, you probably shouldn't reinstitute them. So immediately just cut 10% out of there, because you could safely assume that your revenue is going to be cut 10%. So now at worst case, I'm still break even, but you should try to cut way more than that. Like I went through and I was chopping stuff left and right, and I probably cut way more than 10% out of the budget, like probably several $1,000s out of it. I'm just like, I don't need that. Like it's nice, but like right now the answer is no. And like everything, I'll learn to live without it. And then if I decide to add it back in, great. Or it's just more cash flow for the business. And then on to your note there, James, is yeah, I think people are, and I've talked about this a little bit before, I think people are going to make some mistakes and go all in on virtual and forget that like people want to come back into your business. Like they want to come back in and they want to be around other people, and that shouldn't suffer because you're doing Zoom classes. I think that's
Yeah.
super important to not forget like what your actual core skill set is, and it's not virtual fitness. Like no CrossFit business core skill set is virtual. It's all in-person training.
Yeah.
The other thing that I saw in here that you had, oh shit, where'd it go? I lost it.
Well, and on that point too, I just think it's important to it. I can't believe, so many people have been cutting down on their budgets at home, right? Just because they have no
Yep.
choice. So like apply that same mindset to your gym, and you can get away with a lot of stuff. And with the whole virtual thing too, like I think that it's important that you're right. Like, a virtual only platform for I would say 99.9% of people should be out of the cards. Just hop onto an actual virtual first platform and realize that that's probably, you're overthrowing your coverage there if you think that you can hit that. Like you hop on you hop on a Peloton bike and you realize that, okay, this is different. I don't think I can deliver that.
This is not like my Zoom class.
Right. But like you said, I think it can absolutely be balanced out. And,
go ahead.
Well, and I think the last thing that I think that maybe in retrospect, what I looked at this document as giving people is it allows you to have a plan, but also like if you were to give this to someone, they could do some stuff with it, right? There's Zoom, there are best practices for Zoom, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There's different thoughts, and I hope it inspires and pushes gyms and trainers and managers to not only give things to like, hey guys, we need to present, something to our staff, but also you need to give your staff a playbook. You need to get, you need to get, think about lesson plans. Like you need to, all right, well, what are the new protocols? You need to give your staff the best practices for a new platform. You need to create this new, whatever is new, you need to create a staff playbook than a participant playbook if it's going to be new. And I hope that this document inspires people that we're no longer in the age of just like, you know, go handle it, go wing it. Like, no, there needs to be communication and materials for your, not only, you know, the trainers, but also your members, because now everyone is expecting that. And so hopefully that this manual highlights that that actually does matter.
One of the things I've been spending a lot of time on is so Michael Malleolo just released a new book called Fix This Next. And he basically took Maslow's hierarchy of needs for human beings and he created one for business. And the bottom 3 tiers are, I'm probably butchering this, but I think it's sales, profit, and order. And what he's referring to when he says order, and then the top 2 are like impact and giving or something like that. I don't remember, but I'm not finished the book, but it's really good so far. But it gives you a roadmap to evaluate your business and fix things in a particular order, but then create the appropriate order within your business. And one of the things I've been looking at really hard as I've been just stripping everything down to the studs, basic administratively, is I've had a lot of people in the wrong seats. Like I've had people that are filling roles and tasks that shouldn't be there. And it's not because they're bad people or whatever. It's because that's not their skill set. I was just like, I need that done. You can do that. And this has been a really good opportunity for me to go through that with a fine tooth comb and be like, that person could be utilized far more effectively if I move them over here, which is a win for everybody. It's a win for the members because they get a better experience. It's a win for this person because they're probably going to enjoy it more. It's a win for me because now it will actually get done and I won't be pissed about it. And that order piece has really been highlighted for me because some of that stuff is fairly quick to do. Like if you've already got like a staff playbook, you could have a great staff playbook and it be worthless if you have the wrong people in the wrong seats because they are not good with scheduling, but they're getting it done because you asked them to. So I agree with you as far as like putting like a better framework on that. And I think this has been a good time to evaluate that. And that's what I've been trying to do. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think there's
go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
I
go
just
ahead.
think there's really something to that. You know, there's this great TED talk by this fellow, Martin Reeves, and in it he kind of talks about the longevity of businesses, but also the longevity of businesses have this ability for adaptability, but also they do it in a progressive way that allows them to monitor their change. And I will say, I don't want anyone to have to experience any undue suffering, whether it's financial, physical, emotional, otherwise, caused by something like, the COVID-19 outbreak. But that being said, I think it does give you this opportunity to sort of look a little bit closer at your business and what you have been doing and evaluate, like you said, is this really the best way for us to do business? And especially going forward, I think something a lot of gyms might not be thinking about is, like you guys both mentioned, hey, we're going to get the doors open, we're going to get the lights back on, we're going to get people back into class. But then there is this like, what next? So I do think it's important to kind of look a couple steps ahead and not, like you said, completely rewrite the script that you've been using, but look at the script you've been using and make small changes as you go forward. Because I do think that's going to be important. I don't think, I don't think the in-person way of doing, I don't think in-person fitness is going away forever. I think it's going to change a little bit.
I think it may be in higher demand after this.
In
Quite
some
frankly,
ways,
at least for a
yeah.
short period of time. I think there's going to be people that are just like cannot wait to get out of the house.
Yeah, cannot wait to get out of the house. I think one of the things that has happened here in being in quarantine, I think a lot of people have learned how simple it is to fit fitness into your daily lifestyle, how available fitness is. You don't have to compartmentalize it. And I've used this analogy a bunch. Like, I think, it's kind of like brushing your teeth. You don't get out of bed and brush your teeth and then go tell your friends, oh yeah, I'm a toothbrusher. I'm someone who brushes his teeth. In the way that you go to the gym, you're like, oh yeah, I'm a fitness guy or I'm a fitness girl. I think now fitness is it's going to become more ubiquitous into people's lives. And like, you're going to wake up, you're going to do your little fitness routine or go to your gym for an hour, just because I think quarantine has taught us how simple and easy it is. That's my hope for it. I do think that's going to happen. So like I said, I don't think you throw out the entire playbook for your gym, but if anything, you should take a closer look at it. And just because it works well doesn't mean it couldn't work better. And that's okay.
So on that note, what do you guys think is things that affiliates could either take advantage of or should be I don't want to say weary of, but should be aware of that could be negative consequences of that?
What do you got, James?
Um, Something that I should be weary of. I mean, I do think they should be weary of this idea of like everything gets right back to normal. And because I know things are going to change at our three affiliates we have, and they're excellent affiliates, and we have amazing staff. And it just like everybody else, and I'm sure you've experienced this. It's like I don't think a lot of gyms can just flip the light switch back on, open back up with the same number of full-time staff and the same number of part-time staff and the same expenses that they had before, just because they have people coming back in the door. I
Mm-hmm.
do think the goal should be to, kind of have a new picture in mind of where you want to head to and slowly build back to that. For me personally, the reason I like running an affiliate is because I want to provide coaches the same opportunities I had as an up and coming coach. And I know that what's happened here is going to frustrate that for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
But, if long term, to provide that long term benefit value to up and coming coaches, I probably can't have the same exact staff and payroll that I had 6 months ago. We're going to have to build back to that. And I think that's a really sad and frustrating thing. But if you look at it, if you don't just look at it as like the right now, you look at it as a bigger picture, it can make it more hopeful rather than pessimistic. I think that's probably something to be really wary of, is that the doors open, the lights come on, and all you have to do is provide some more hand sanitizer and everything else is going to work out. I do think you should kind of take this like back, this slow back to business approach. How do we climb back to where we were? Not that just because we're back in the gym, it's automatically going to happen.
I think it's a good opportunity for everybody to do. I mean, it's a forcing function, but whatever. I mean, if you haven't looked at this as an opportunity to do a reset, I mean, I don't care what business you're in, like you've got some shit you can fix in your business. And if you're not looking at this as almost as some sort of and I use this term lightly, but a gift, meaning you have now time, which you didn't have before if you're in the affiliate all day coaching classes and dealing with members, but you do have more time to get in there and really kind of evaluate I've said this 1,000 times, but you're not going to get, Jesus, hopefully not again. You're not going to get another 6 to 8 weeks or however long it's going to be where you don't have people in your affiliate. And if you're only looking at that as a negative and not looking at it as a way to retool your business and try to rebuild it in a better likeness or something that you want to be attached to long term, I think that's a massive mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, it's one of those things where I think it kind of, it like you said, sorts the wheat from the chaff, in the sense that like, there are I hear stories, I have a couple close friends that own affiliates, and I've been chatting to them about this whole process. And some of them have been saying like, I'm just really, it really bums me out to see affiliate owners who like don't want to do anything, who don't want to run Zoom classes, who don't care about, keeping their membership going. And I think also this is a good reality check for people. Hey, we all like being in a relationship or being in a business partnership or running a business when things are going great. Like, of
Mm-hmm.
course, anyone wants to do that regardless of what the industry is. But it's like the real kind of test of the metal is when things get a little rocky. Is this, is this just a fair weather process or fair weather relationship for you? Or is this something that like you're excited to work on and make better? And I think there'll be a lot of affiliate owners who should have that conversation with themselves of like, well, when things got bad, I didn't care. So is this the business for me to be in?
Yeah.
And like you said, I mean, for us on Ham Plan, we have been wanting to do an at-home program option for a really long time. And
Mm-hmm.
when quarantine happened, we were like, well, we don't know if this will work, but this is the opportunity to move forward. And we did, and we're really happy that we did. So yeah, there is opportunity in this. There is silver lining. And like I said, I think for affiliate owners out there, you're not a bad person, and don't think of it as take advantage, but you're not a bad person to look at this as opportunity. I know there are a lot of people out there who have suffered financially, physically, lost loved ones in really awful circumstances, but it's okay for you still to look for silver lining in a bad situation. And you should do that.
Yeah. And I think, but I think that really dovetails into something that I think hopefully, I think not be wary, but also like, you just can't be a one trick pony nowadays.
Yeah.
And I really hope that people realize that this now is that like, and I think some people might realize that they want to be, but unfortunately, like I look at, fortunate enough, I also run the gym at Reebok, and you know, and the amount of skill sets that I've leveraged to add value, I've done. I don't know if I've given anyone a real cue in 10 weeks, right? My coaching skill set, I don't know if it's been leveraged, if anything at all. Um, but you know what? My skill sets for knowing how to create some level of media that is consumable by people, right? From recording to editing to those things. I know this stuff sounds funny, but like it's important. Like I can open up Adobe Premiere and edit a video. I know how, like I have the materials to do that. And you know what? It's being used by the brand now, like, and my team. And then I was able to teach my team that, and they're able to stay busy. And the business stuff, we've we were able to leverage our skill set of how do we manage a P&L? How do you run projections from 10 to 50% of lost revenue against your expenses? How do you run scenarios? We've been doing that. And what that really boils down to is you cannot expect to be successful in this day and age if you're a one-trick pony, unless you are the best in the world at something, and most likely that's not you.
Hmm.
That's, and
And
I
it's
think,
true.
and so if you're in pursuit of that, it's like, well, great. There's a lot of data that shows knowing multiple skill sets can elevate one skill set to the top, right? Just read the book Range and it'll really help your concept of that out, which is, I think, hard to understand for some. But I think that's what, be wary of that. Like, like you said, don't open up your doors and be like, well, we're back to what we were doing. Like, no, like you're still going to need to provide Zoom classes in some way, shape, or form. You know what? You're going to have to think about other ways of how do you market, and how do you get the people that aren't comfortable coming back. You can't be so hard-headed to think that, there's a lot more free stuff. People are going to be offering stuff for free, and, so you have to be innovative with that. So I think that's one of the biggest takeaways is, hopefully people have learned that this is a time to learn if you don't have another skill set. And, I'm not talking go learn a language just because you want to be more cultured. Go learn a language if you want to get a group of people that are underserved in your community, in your gym. That's what I'm talking about. But like, that's where the mindset needs to be. It can't be like, open up the doors and they will come. Those days have passed.
No, I agree. I couldn't agree with you anymore at all. Like I was okay. Like, so we can use the video editing as a perfect example. So there's tons of people that created no content whatsoever, like not one snippet of content in this time frame. And just based on that single metric, I think the likelihood of failure for that person long term is pretty high. Like, I'm just going to go off that single metric. Now, I don't think you need to be the world's greatest video editor, but if you didn't think about opening up Adobe Pro or Final Cut Pro 10 or something like that, I was like, okay, which means I was pretty shitty at video editing. But in about 3 days worth of like watching YouTube videos, I made some stuff that's pretty cool. Like, it's
Yeah.
not great, but it's like pretty high quality. It looks like somebody else did it essentially. And you're like, okay, good for you. You made a cool video. But what's the long tail of that, right? So if I'm thinking out long tail, well, AI should be thinking about how, not only like, am I going to get my previous customers back, but moving forward, what does client acquisition look like? So not only are you on less revenue, but client acquisition costs are going to go up. If you now have to pay for ads or pay for some sort of marketing and pay for the videographer or the editor to do that, well, you don't even get to enter the game of acquisition because you can't afford it and you didn't learn how to do something that was reasonably done, put together. So it's not about like, I was able to do this. It's like, I've got a skill set now and I can do that myself if I need to be able to stay in the game long term. And that's where I think people were just not paying attention. It's like, yeah, you should outsource things that are not in your super skill, but at the same time, like, you should be pretty competent at those things as well. Like, you should be able to make a good video if you're a gym owner, a micro gym owner in a boutique fitness type world. Like, you have to be a jack
Yeah.
of all trades.
It's like, listen, I mow my lawn. But you know what? I'm not a landscaper, but you know what? I'll go look at someone. Oh, well, what do you do? Your lawn looks really good. Like, I'm going to learn best practices, but and then, you know what, when it's time to bring in the big dogs, I'll bring in the big dogs if I need to. But
Yeah.
it's the same concept, and I think it's easily forgotten. And hopefully that, even like looking at this document, there's a lot of skill sets we're pulling on from, and hopefully that gets the juices flowing for people of of how to really get through this and come to the other side.
Well, what I think it's important about this document is what I think you did a good job of putting this together is, to me, this doesn't read as this is the way to open your gym. This has a lot of things in it, meaning like you could pick and choose any number of the things in this 40-page document and use them. And some of them I might use temporarily, some of them I might use forever, some of them I might not use at all. But again, I had this weird, I was trying to create like, okay, what's the class schedule going to be when we open up? And I finally came to the realization, I'm like, I'm going to get it wrong no matter what. Like, there's no way for me to accurately gauge how many people are going to come in the door. Half of them aren't even working, so their schedules are not the same anymore. Like, life is not the same right now. So I came up with like 5 different variations of the class. And the plan was not to get it right, but was to shift as fast as possible based on what I saw coming in the door, right? So it's not about having this perfectly laid out plan, because it's probably not going to work out anyway. It's about having those contingencies in place, and like, if A happens, then I'm going to do this. If B happens, then I'm going to do this. And all that leads you to do is able to pivot faster based on what's coming at you. And again, it's not about the plan, it's about the planning, right? Your plan is going to fail regardless. So then it's like the process of planning helped me pivot and be flexible as the things change, because we don't know. We don't know what the stipulations are going to be for opening. We don't know how they're going to enforce it. We don't know how long that's going to last. We don't know any of that stuff. So you should have plans for all of them in place. And even if they're really, really, well designed, well thought out, super detailed, or if they're just rough plans, like, you should have them all in place.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because one of the things I actually had wanted to do and started working on last week was sort of a little addendum to this back to business guide, because I just wanted to throw something else out there as a resource for people. Some affiliates that we work with on the hand plan, and just friends of mine that I've talked to that have started to open up, they are doing very different things. And so last week I sat down to write a plan for our CrossFit One Nation gyms, and plan 1 was limited capacity in the gym, but in the gym classes. Plan 2 was limited capacity outdoor classes. Plan 3 was can't do group training. So how do we do group training in this modified open gym coach supervised model? And so I wrote out 4 or 5 different options of how we might run this. And I agree with that. The adaptability is crucial. And I don't think any one of those plans will be perfectly right. They all might be wrong, but at least that way I have a couple options. If, depending on what happened for us on Monday 18th, governor might come back and say, hey, look, Jim, sorry, bad news. You guys can only do one-on-ones. Like, okay, so it's hard. But yeah, I think it's okay to sit down and write a couple different plans, and it's crucial, like you said.
I think you're just going to be stuck and not know what to do. And what's important to realize is you have a community to serve, right? So yes, it's about getting my business and being organized, but like, particularly, and I think this should be highlighted. A lot of gyms, and you were talking about this before, or I think after we said record, the number of people that gyms retained has been pretty high.
Yeah.
Well, if nobody's thought about this, like, you fucking owe those people something. You owe them to be prepared because they supported you. Like, if you're just the guy who you're like, hey, thanks for supporting me, and I'm giving you the same ham sandwich that we had before, right? I think that's pretty awful, right? Like, so I think you owe those people because they did support you. They kept you above water, and they're going to support you moving forward. But they shouldn't support you if you did nothing to plan out and figure out how to serve them moving forward. I just think that's garbage. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's you have to deliver, right? I mean, it's like you said, how are you delivering to get better? And what is that adaptability? But you have to, because and I think as soon as you can do something, you have to do something for them, and I just look at Reebok. We're going to be a little more hamstrung because it's a bigger company, and there's going to be other rules with that. But what we want to do is planning on doing. We're going to do different work because we have employees all over the greater Boston area, and that aren't going to be able to go back to the company, business right away. We're going to do a workout every day in a different location within a 30-mile radius, and make a schedule, join us, and at this location on Tuesday, join at different locations based off where people live, adhere to all the guidelines because we can.
Hmm.
And, and those are the things I would have never have thought about that a couple of weeks ago, but I'm like, I have to do this because people want to see each other. I'm not gonna be able to get everyone in the gym, certainly for a Reebok until potentially next year,
Oh my
you
God.
know, based off where people are working and all these other things. But, so we have to, and that's the thing, we have to think outside the box, no pun intended, even like looking at your facility differently. Your gym, if, whatever the guidelines are, I was talking to one of our coaches today. It's like, what if we hung rings from the rafters? So essentially you had, in one of our gyms, you could hang rings from the rafters. Therefore you could do pull-ups. You could do everything on, it won't be a pull-up bar, but you don't have to use the rig now. So, which is a nightmare for setup in your gym, depending on how your gym is set up, and how your building is set up.
So
But
that would put them in
me-
like the rings would be in their little box.
Oh,
the
you're
ring
talking
was,
about for
yeah.
social distancing purposes.
yeah. So for
Got it.
social
Yeah, that
distancing,
makes sense.
if your rings are down in your box, I have 15 stations now, and it's beautiful. I can do every movement in that box.
Hmm.
I was like, well, shit, that's a great idea. I know now I don't have to worry about the rig. I don't have to worry about moving anything. I can just drop rings down, and I can do toe to bar. I can do pull-ups. And then if I want to do pull-up day, then like we mentioned in the document, you know what? It's only pull-up day. So we'll do Cindy as an example.
Hmm.
You stay under the rig,
Yep.
so, but this is how we have to think, because you know what? That means we're getting better. Your members walk in the gym and they see that, they're like, yeah, you did
Put some
something
thought into
here.
this. Yeah, you thought this through. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. I think it should be very evident to those people that have supported you that you really put some thought and effort into this, and that you really are trying to give them a good experience while being handcuffed at the same time. I do think
Yeah.
we will go back to something that resembles normal. I think the landscape of fitness is going to change a little bit, but I think in 7 to 9 months, for hopefully way sooner, but like most gyms will be back to, people back in the door. We won't have to social distance, all that stuff. But in the meantime, you have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I think is interesting, and I don't want to totally like go in a different direction, but this just kind of dawned on me, and we don't really talk about this in the Back to Business manual. But I think, a lot of us are putting these, and I don't want to get into the politics of this, but we're seeing this play out in the world around us in real life. We've put in a lot of our policies in our gyms, sanitation policies, social distance policies, with the expectations that people are going to be 100% compliant. And, I think one of the big things, you should make a note on your little whiteboard in your office. Everybody should do this if you're a gym head coach or affiliate owner, is be like, how am I going to handle people who are going to be like, screw it, I don't care about social distancing, I'm not worried, or I already got it, I got the antibodies, I beat
Yeah.
it. Or, how do you handle the non-compliance of that? Because you're gonna, it's so funny, I just thought of this now. We're gonna have to have a what's the word I want to look for, a civilized plan and a rational plan for how to deal with people who are like that. Because you know what, like, maybe they do feel totally comfortable and they're not worried, and they want to do a partner workout or share a piece of equipment, and I don't
Or
know,
just disregard the rules. Yeah.
yeah, I just wonder, how do we start to handle that kind of stuff? And I think that's a good thing. You put just, circle that in your notebook as far as like, how do I handle people who don't want to deal with this kind of stuff or don't believe in it? Because the world at large is going to have a really hard problem with that. The government's going to have a hard problem with that. So I think it's good for us to have a plan for that too.
We had a staff meeting last week. We were going over some of these protocols, and one of the coaches was asking that question. And the question was basically, if people go to high five, like, should I stop them? And I said, no, like, you're not big brother, you're not their dad. Like, that is a voluntary, interaction between two people, that if they want to do that, that's fine. Our job, at least the way I see it, is to basically urge people to do like the right thing and do and follow the rules. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to like dive in between two people who are going to give each other a hug because they haven't seen each other in 8 weeks. Like, I'm going to let them do that. And if they're comfortable with it, well then listen, like, whatever. Like, it is what it is. I don't think people are going to be able to stop human interaction. That's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I think that's really interesting.
I think the biggest issue is, I think you look at it no different than a member cheating at your gym. A member breaking one of your rules, a member, miscounting, where it's, you know what, very rarely do you make that a big production, but you have to, how do you address it? When do you address it? When it becomes an issue for your community, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's as simple as it is like when it becomes an issue for your community, then you address it. If the majority of your people feel unsafe with someone, you have to have that discussion. No different than the stinky member in the gym. You know what? I've had 3 members come up to me and tell me the same member smells. I need to address it because it's affecting the community.
Yeah.
I'd rather not. I really don't want to talk about people's hygiene, but you know what? It's affecting membership. Therefore, it's affecting my business. Now it's my responsibility. And yeah, so, and I think that's going to happen, it's,
I think it's just
we're
a
going to,
simple reminder. It's like, hey guys, like try to practice social distancing, wash your hands, and just remind everybody that not everybody might be cool with it. Like they are.
Yeah.
Like, listen, I get it, you're cool with it. I'm cool with it, but like not everybody's cool with it. So just have a little awareness, right? Like
Yeah.
social awareness is an important life skill.
Billy, stop licking all the barbells.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
my
I like that take on it though, of like, just present it as here's what you should do rather than that list of like, don't do all this. It's
Well, I think on that note, I think it's important to look at the other end of the spectrum. Like a lot of people are scared and all this other stuff. And if you go to the other end of the spectrum, which is probably where I fall, quite frankly, there's a lot of people that don't want more rules, that don't want more oversight, that don't want you to tell them what to do anymore. It's just like, listen, we're all adults here. Like, yeah, I'll abide, man, within reason, but we're friends. I'm going to shake his hand. I'm going to give him a good game, and then we'll deal with it later. But other people, I'm not going to do that to if they're not cool with it. So I do think you have to consider that. There's people that would be equally as turned off by that as people who would be equally turned off by people who don't social distance. And our job is to manage those two things. It's a fine balance.
And I think James has mentioned it too. I think we mentioned it in the business guide of like special population classes too. Like, it's like, all right, well, do we do, a class just like they've done at grocery stores up here? It's like, hey, like if you're 60 and over, like, it's like, before we used to call it master's class. So you didn't want to offend anyone for age. Gone are the days where I give a shit about offending people by calling them by their age, right? It's like, listen, if you like, in all seriousness, the silver fox class, or like the better with, like the fine wine class. No, like you're at risk class, like, which means you're 62 years or older, whatever it might be. Great. We're going to have a class for you. And it's going to be super vigilant. And the rules are going to be very different because we want you to be comfortable. What we did before to get you in here is unique, like whatever it might be. Doing that is a gesture. I do think back to your point of what have you done to make people feel safe? It's like, all right, well, we have a class for that population. We have a class for the people that are very nervous. And you know what? That's okay. And we've done extra steps that we don't necessarily feel is necessary for everybody, but we've done this for this population. And you know what? If you want to raise your hand and say, I don't fit into this population, but I actually am as worried as them, great. We'd probably let you join the class.
Yeah, why not?
We want to make you feel comfortable. So I do think doing things like that are going to be really important because, if you walk in the doors and you want to get fit, that's all I care about, which means if, and I need to take care of that. So like, I think we have to remember that and I have my views, but they don't matter. What matters are my 300, 400, 500 members that are walking in, they matter.
And that's something so a lot of questions come about like what we're doing. Like, are we going to let people keep equipment or they have to bring it back? Like, how are we going to do it? I'm like, what does that person need? Do they need to keep the equipment? They can keep the equipment. It's fine. We're probably going to have reduced class sizes anyway. So the answer is largely yes. Whatever that person needs for me to facilitate health and wellness and happiness, like that's the answer. Within reason, obviously, but that's what people are going to have to do quite a bit of is flex real hard. Like they're going to have to figure it out and you're going to have to appease a lot of people. And then everybody will figure out like, what's the appropriate time to have not like a hard stop on that, but like, okay, guys, like we're going to try to get back to something that resembles normal.
Well, and I hate to be the guy who keeps like banging this drum, but I think that's true. It's like, I like what you both said there. Like all I care about is that you want to continue to get some fitness. And, if for the short term, you still renting a piece of equipment keeps you getting fitness and keeps you as a member of my CrossFit affiliate, then we're going to do that. And I think one of the metrics you measure that against is 6 months down the road when you're back to full class size and you're like, well, I have 2 members who have rented equipment, but I need that for classes. Or like if it's becoming an expense issue, the equipment you have rented out, you're not losing money on that, or it's like pulling the business back down, then you start to reevaluate. That's the
Yeah.
tool you use to reevaluate it. But I
Yeah.
love that approach of like, hey, these people want to get fit. They still want to get fit with me. I'm going to find an opportunity in a way to do that with them as I slowly move back to normal. Like, yeah, I don't think it should be like, hey, since the gyms are open again, we're taking back all the equipment we rented, because you don't know how that's going to shake out for everybody. And it's probably something that you can do progressively. I think that's a really important thing, is as we move back to normal, it can be more progressive than when quarantine first happened and we had to be a little bit more abrupt and reactive. Like, we can be a little bit more slower paced now, as long as we're still moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. So where can people find the Back to Business plan?
So if you go to the handplan.com and then / back to business, or if you just go to handplan.com, right on the main page there, it says COVID-19, our response. You click on that and we have our back to business guide. You can download it right there. So
yeah, I recommend everybody go download it. You'd be hard pressed to convince me that you didn't take a solid piece of information out of there. I think it's really, really well laid out. It's got a lot of options in there. Worst case scenario, it's just food for thought, which is really beneficial right now. So
that's
thank you guys.
Hand plan, not just hand plan, the hand plan.
Yeah.
Sorry. It gets confusing with the website. I don't want people to get lost.
That's all right. It's cool. Oh, is there just handplan.com?
I think
we need to talk about that. Is somebody cyber squatting on that? Somebody
cyber squatting who owns it. Yeah.
They've been squatting on it, since 6 years ago, and I can't find it. I tried.
Son of a bitch.
Every time I do it to like enlist this agency and we'll find it for you. Like, nah, you're just gonna take my money and never come back.
Never come back.
Yeah.
So if you guys have questions, hit these guys up. A wealth of knowledge in coaching and affiliate ownership, and obviously just like forward thinkers. So thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate this. Good shit.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Hopefully I'll see you soon.
That's right.
Yeah.
The best 45 minutes of your day.
I got to change my damn podcast now.
Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't already, do us a favor, head over to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback for either Fern or myself, hit us up, besthouroftheirday@gmail.com, or send us a DM over on Instagram at Best Hour of Their Day. Once again, we couldn't do this without the amazing community, and you are a part of it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting Best Hour of Their Day.